Grace and peace, beloved of God. This is Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. I'm going to start tagging some folks so that you can know that that we are live. Let's see, tag friends. Here we go. All right, so this is Apostle Cheryl Richardson. This is our very first Facebook Live discussion of 2020. We pray that your year is off to an amazing start and that the Lord is beginning to just give you some serious guidance and correct your trajectory if that's what's needed. Encourage your heart, inspire your thought process. We'd like to welcome you to our first broadcast of 2020. We thank God for all that He's done thus far. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us. As a reminder, if I don't get to respond to your comments or your questions while we are live, I will absolutely revisit our chat and respond and answer to each and every one of your concerns and comments. If you would take a few minutes and go ahead and share, just share with 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 people on your friends list. Domestic violence is so prevalent in society worldwide that anybody that you tag either has experienced it in the past, they are experiencing it right now, or they're connected to someone who is experiencing it, because it's just that prevalent. And that's a sad, sad statistic, but it's the truth. We've mentioned before that the frequency of domestic violence is greater within the church across denominational lines than without the church. And this is appalling. And as long as we've known this, it's very difficult to kind of wrap my head around it, because it does not represent Christ. It does not represent His Spirit. And so that tells me that we've got a whole lot of folks sitting up in churches, dutifully attending and tithing or whatever, and they're not living the life that they say that they are after the benediction. Okay, and so this is something that we must address. Now, nobody wants to talk about this. It's not a fun topic. There's nothing lighthearted about it. People are losing their lives, but we have a mandate from the Lord to address it, and that's what we're going to do. It's important that we educate ourselves so that we can better serve Him, so that we can better position ourselves and be better friends and better parents and better siblings, better employees, better employers. If we have people who are assigned to our voice, it's important that we be able to help them in all facets of their life and not just in that area of their life that benefits us. Okay, so what am I saying? If you're a pastor or you're a ministry leader, you're an apostle, you're a bishop, you're a prophet, you have a ministry, our concern for the people who are assigned to us should exceed their ability to tithe, should exceed their time availability to pour into our vision, into our ministry. We should be concerned about what happens to them after the benediction. We should be concerned about the quality of the life that they are living outside of the four walls of the church, okay? And so our assignment is really to just provoke, aggravate, implore, to get the attention of the people of God, because often we're so easily distracted. We'll get excited about a thing, and then the next shiny thing that comes along, we're chasing that. And so, we've gotten really distracted by platforms and notoriety and partnerships and relationships and competition, and none of that has anything to do with spending an eternity with the Lord. It just does not. So we're distracted by things that don't matter at the end of the day. What the Lord is concerned about is the quality of the life that we live individually, not only while we're sitting in a service, but after the benediction. So again, this is Apostle Cheryl Richardson, and I thank you for sharing. January is National Stalking Awareness Month. I'm continuing to tag you guys, so I'm going to rely on you to tag some other folks so that we can get the word out. It's important that we be educated, okay? It's important that we be willing to learn that we don't already know. And it's important that we recognize that we don't know everything. Okay, as long as we think we know everything, nobody can tell us anything. Okay, so we've got to be willing to admit that we can always learn something else. We can see things from a different perspective. We can become knowledgeable about information that we did not have any knowledge of previously, or we can be reminded of information that maybe we were aware of, but we have failed to apply in our day-to-day lives, okay? So, I have tagged a bunch of folks. I'm going to ask you to tag a bunch of folks, and we're going to continue. So, hey, Pam. Hey, Jeannie. Listen, hey, Kelly. If I haven't said hello to you, I'm sorry. Hello to everyone who has signed on. Okay, so we're going to talk about the many faces of stalking. January is National Stalking Awareness Month, and I want to share some history with you regarding how that came about. I'm going to try to wave the folks. There we go. Hopefully I got everybody. So, January 2020 marks the 16th annual National Stalking Awareness Month. It was launched in 2004 with the goal of increasing the public's understanding of the crime of stalking. So now let me just tell you that stalking is a crime in all of our states in the United States. The District of Columbia, okay, included. It's a crime. The issue is that each state has its own statute. What do I mean by that? Each state has its own laws, and all the laws don't read the same. So that's where the complication comes in. So it's important that you familiarize yourself with the laws pertaining to stalking and what constitutes stalking in your particular state, okay? Again, it's a crime in all of our states. All of our states consider it a crime, but how they describe it, the criteria that they establish before they call a thing stalking, may vary from state to state, okay? So, back in 2004, it was launched, and it was launched, sadly, in response to the death of a young woman named Margaret. She was called Peggy Klinke. She was born in 1970. She was murdered in 2003. She was stalked, and she was ultimately murdered by her ex-boyfriend, whose name I refuse to call. Not going to call it. I know it, but I'm not even going to give him that kind of attention. She was only 32 years old at the time of her death. And her sister has since become very, very, very involved and wanted something positive, which is understandable, to come from all of this. So this is the 16th annual National Stalking Awareness Month. How many of you even knew that there was such a thing? Many people have heard of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, right? Which is in October, as is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But how many of you knew that there was a Stalking Awareness Month? So in order for a behavior or a disease or whatever to have a month set aside to address it in full force, it's got to have a pretty large impact. And what's scary is how big of an impact did it have to have before it became important enough, before it became evident that it was impactful enough that a month needed to be designated for it. And so I submit to you that although there's a month of January that's designated for it, that this is an issue every single month. Just like October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, right, on a national level, it's an issue every month, and it's an issue every single day, okay? And we've talked about stalking in the past. I think back in September, October timeframe, we talked about stalking. And we're going to be looking at it throughout this month. And you'll notice that our posts are geared more towards addressing stalking and providing you with information about stalking so that you can understand how prevalent it is. And we're not going to try to cover it all today because there's a whole lot to cover. There's a whole lot to cover. But it's important to us that you're educated concerning it. Oftentimes, when we talk about domestic violence and we talk about stalking, people don't even realize that this is what they're being subjected to. They have no idea. Okay, it's become normalized for them. They don't even know that it's a facet of domestic violence. And because of that, it's cyclical in nature and it's incredibly dangerous. So let me just tell you that if in your thought process you think, oh, well, stalking, you know, they're keeping up with me. They're keeping track of my friends, and it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. No, 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 no. I'm going to pray for your discernment. I'm going to pray for your discernment, okay? It's not okay. It's not normal. It's not cute. It's not romantic, okay? It's very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And it can initially look like concern for your safety. Initially. Until it doesn't look like that anymore, okay? And so it's a tremendous red flag in a relationship of any kind. It doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. If someone's tracking your every move like that, getting upset, flipping out because they don't know exactly where you are all of the time, pay attention to that, okay? I cannot stress that enough. So again, National Stalking Awareness Month was launched in 2004 after the murder of Peggy Clinky by her intimate partner, ex-boyfriend, whose name I refuse to call, just in honor of her. And her sister has been very, very, very actively involved in advocating and raising awareness about this, okay? So this is the 16th year that it's been acknowledged. So I want to share some more information with you. Let's see. In 2011, under the Obama administration, the White House issued the first presidential proclamation on National Stalking Awareness Month. So although it had been recognized and launched in 2004, it wasn't until 2011 under President Obama, regardless of how you feel about his presidency, okay, it was under his administration that the first presidential proclamation on National Stalking Awareness Month was issued. Why is that important? Because it lends credibility to how monumental the problem is, that it's garnered White House attention, so much so that a proclamation was issued by the president, okay? And so it's a very, 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 it's serious. This is a serious thing, okay? What is stalking? If you think you know what it is, throw it up there. Hey, Ree, if you think you know what stalking is, do share, okay? What is it? Okay? It is a serious crime that occurs when one person, there are many definitions, okay? I'm going to share more than one definition with you, and you just kind of, just listen to them, okay? It is a serious crime that occurs when one person engages in actions directed at another person which causes this person to feel scared or threatened for his or her safety and or that of loved ones. Okay? So it's something, the important elements for you to remember is this, that it's targeted. It's a specific person that's being targeted, okay? Most likely by another specific person. And what it causes in the target feels afraid and anxious and concerned about their safety or their life and or the safety of those that they care about, okay? So it's a pattern. It's not one time. It's got to be at least 2 times, okay? In order for it to not just be a fluke, okay? But 2 or more times, okay? There is attention being drawn. There's this individual's being targeted, and it's causing them to feel fear. Now, the concern I have about this particular definition is this. Many of us walk around, especially spiritual people, all deep and mystical, with fairy dust sprinkling over our head all the time. God's got me covered, and I'm safe, and I'm this, and that, and the other, and we're not paying attention to clear indicators of danger in our environment, okay? And that's just misguided spirituality is what it is, okay? We've got to have some accountability. We've got to assume some responsibility for our own safety. And so, yes, God will absolutely protect you, but He wants you to participate and keep yourself safe as well, okay? So let's stop being so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good, all right? The problem with the definition that I just read, in my opinion, is that it depends on the target feeling fear or feeling concern. And many of us don't feel concerned and we don't feel fear because we're not paying attention, because we are sprinkling fairy dust on some crazy behavior and rationalizing it and normalizing it and making excuses for not judging it, will say things like, well, I shouldn't judge another person, and I shouldn't, well, if they're creeping around outside your house at 1 a.m., that's a problem. And I don't know what scripture you can find to make that normal. Okay? And so we've got to be realistic about what we're dealing with. And we have to understand from a spiritual standpoint that God is perfectly able to deal with the actual problem. He does not need for us to water it down or to make it less serious or to make it less intense so that he can manage it. Okay? He can manage the actual problem. And so what we need to take to him then is the actual problem and not the minimized problem, not the rationalized problem. Okay? Because what that is an indicator of is it's our own inability to accept and acknowledge what's right in our face, oftentimes. Okay? All right. So stalking is a serious crime that occurs when one person engages in actions directed at another person, which causes this person to feel scared or threatened for his or her safety and or that of loved ones. And I said that the problem with that is that it depends on you being able to figure out that you should be concerned. Okay? And so that's a problem. I have a problem with that. All right? Now, stalking is often committed by someone that the victim knows. Stalking by an intimate partner is the most common type, and it's the most dangerous type. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. Stalking normally occurs by someone that the victim knows. They know them, they've met them, they've come into contact with them somewhere. They're not a complete and total, I've never seen you before, I've never been in your presence before. Okay, so it's someone that the victim knows. The most common type of stalking is by an intimate partner or former intimate partner, okay? And that is the most dangerous time statistics have established. That if you are stalked by someone that you once had a relationship with, okay, that is incredibly dangerous. That's more dangerous than some random person deciding that they want to stalk you, okay? We talked about Peggy. All right. Listen to these statistics, okay? And this is according to the Centers for Disease Control, okay? Now, the Centers for Disease Control is the nation's health protection agency. So they are responsible for anything, monitoring any and everything that threatens our health, the quality of our health, all right, our ability to maintain our health in a good, positive manner. Okay, so according to the CDC, in the U.S., more than 27% of women, and if you want to capture what I'm saying, it would be greatly appreciated, okay? And don't forget to share. So in the U.S., more than 27% of women and 11% of men have experienced contact sexual violence, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. So 27% of women, in excess of that, and 11% of men have experienced contact sexual violence, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. There's a survey that's done by telephone that the Centers for Disease Control sponsors, and they interview men and women 18 years of age and older in order to garner these statistics, just so you know where it came from, all right? It's the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey, and it's conducted by phone by the Centers for Disease Control. Okay. Stalking is a public health problem, which we know that because they are tracking it. Okay, so it's a public health problem that affects millions of women and men in the United States. Stalking occurs, here's another definition. Stalking occurs when someone repeatedly harasses or threatens someone else, causing fear or safety concerns. Okay? And again, let me just reiterate this. The fact that you're not afraid doesn't mean you're not being stalked. Okay? The fact that you're not afraid could have something to do with your mindset. It could have something to do with your upbringing. What you need to ask yourself is, would someone else be afraid of this? Okay? And this is why I say that. Because of the way that I was raised and because of the way that I grew up. Afraid of what? Afraid of who? Intimidated by what? So my response to that, my natural response to that may not be fear. So we need to be able to step back and look at the behavior and ask ourselves, would somebody else be afraid of this? Would somebody else be alarmed by this? Okay? You don't want to rely on your upbringing and the fact that you aren't afraid of anything to determine if you are in danger or not. The fact that you're not afraid of it does not make it any less dangerous. Okay? So you've got to step back and look. Is that clear? Do I need to say that another way? Is that clear? If that's clear, then say yes so that I know that it's clear. Okay? Is it clear what I'm saying? Don't rely on your own defense mechanism, your response to what you perceive to be a threat or whatever. Because your threshold for a threat may be a lot higher than someone else's. But it doesn't make the stalking any less dangerous or any less important. Okay? All right. So, stalking occurs when someone repeatedly harasses or threatens someone else, causing fear or safety concerns. Okay? It can look like making unwanted phone calls, sending unwanted emails, instant messages, text messages, voicemails, or social media messages. Now I'm going to tell you something else. It also looks like people just stalking, hovering, lurking, lurking on your page, not saying nothing, popping up, and know that their relationship with you is fractured. Know that you don't want to be bothered. And yet, every time you go live, here they come. Every time. They lurking, peeping, wanting to know what you're doing. Okay? Checking out your social media pages, surfing and looking and listening. Okay? That's also stalking. Okay? Approaching a victim or showing up at home or workplace or at school. Just showing up. Uninvited. Just showing up. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to do anything. But they want you to know that they're there. They want you to know that they're there. So them just popping up like that. Okay? Uninvited. Especially if it's an ex anything and they don't have any business there. Okay? So that's also what it can look like. Leaving strange or potentially threatening items for the victim to find. Okay? Leaving strange or unwanted items for the victim to find. It might be that you come home from work and you find a beautiful bouquet of flowers at your front door. It could be that you get called up front to the receptionist's office at work and they tell you someone's dropped off a gift for you. Okay? And so these are things that you don't want because you don't want a relationship with this person. You don't want this person in your life. Okay? Now, if you're in a situation where you have separated from someone, okay, then the gift buying and the candy and the popping up is all part of hoovering. That's designed to pull you back in, especially if you have filed charges and there's a court case pending, because they need for you to change your mind one way or the other. Okay, if a box of chocolates doesn't do it, then maybe a threat will. Okay, maybe them popping up everywhere you go will, because they don't want you to go through with your charges. Okay, so it can also be part of hoovering. But it's important that you know that it's stalking is what it is, okay? So leaving strange or potentially threatening items for the victim to find. Watching, following, or tracking a victim. Okay, now, they can watch, follow, and track you themselves, or they can have their friend Ray Ray watch, follow, and track you. They can have a flying monkey that is in relationship with you. A mutual friend. A relative that you felt that you had this special rapport with of your stalker, okay? Have them keep them abreast of your actions, your movements, who you're spending time with, what time you leave, and what time you come back, okay? So there's more than one way to watch, to be watched and stalked. It can be the person themselves. It can be someone that they send. It can be someone that you have a relationship with that also has a relationship with them, okay? Sneaking into the home or car and doing things to scare the victim and or let the victim know that they have been there. Okay? This could be, let's say you move out. You move away from your stalker. You end the relationship. You're trying to go on with your life. And they deliver a package that came to your old address. Now the problem is, how did they know where you were? Okay? That's stalking. And it's letting you know that they know where you are. And so there's an element of fear that they want to interject. Why? Because it's about power and control. It's about power and control, okay? So, these are all coercive control tactics, and it involves gaslighting. It involves flying monkeys often. The flying monkey can be your pastor. It can be your therapist. It can be your cousin. It can be their cousin that you've become good friends with. It could be their mama that you thought you had this wonderful relationship with, okay? Hey, Misty. And so it's important to recognize the many, many faces of stalking. How many different ways stalking can be utilized that a victim can be oblivious to. Now, what's important about the breaking into the house, entering the home, entering the car, entering the workplace, and leaving some evidence that they've been there? That's psychologically abusive. It instills fear, okay? And if the victim tells someone, they can sound like they crazy, right? So they gave you flowers, so what are you upset about? So they brought you a tennis bracelet, so what are you upset about? Sounds like they're really sorry that your relationship ended and that they really just want to stay connected to you, okay? And so this is the response that you can get as a victim when you begin to report stalking behavior. So it's important, if you are experiencing these things, that you document them. The date and the time and the circumstances. You've got to keep track of it, or it'll get away from you. And it may be difficult for you to understand just how rapidly things are escalating, okay? But you need to be able to establish these things. You need to be able to document and establish that these behaviors are occurring, okay? Now, while most women and men first experience being stalked as adults, 21% of female victims and 13% of male victims report being stalked as minors. 21% of female victims and 13% of male victims report being stalked as minors. The very first time I experienced stalking, and it freaked me completely out, and I didn't even know there was a name for it. I think I was probably 15 or 16. And Ree, you're on here, so it happened in the neighborhood that we lived in. It happened in the neighborhood that we lived in. Hey, Roz. And I don't even know if I told you about this. but you know, and at first it felt flattering that this guy wanted to talk to me, and I didn't really pay any attention to him, but he would say hi every time he saw me. And then it felt like I was just seeing him an awful lot. But we lived across the street from a neighborhood store that a lot of people frequented. So in my mind, okay, he's just going to the store. In hindsight, he sure was going to the store a lot, okay? But what really, really got me was one day he had someone show me these pictures that he had taken of me. And then I got scared because he had been taking pictures of me when I would leave for school. He was taking pictures of me when I would come back from school. So he had pictures of me just going about my day-to-day routine, and I had no idea he was anywhere near me, okay? And so that scared me. That scared me. That was scary. I mean, I'm 16, and that was scary, okay? So it instills this feeling of vulnerability in you, because you don't know what they're going to do next. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what's on their mind. And I didn't understand what his fascination was. It just didn't make any sense to me. And I was able to rationalize it, dismiss it, ignore it until I saw those pictures. And that was scary. That was scary. And I talked to some of my friends about it, and they addressed it. Okay? I'm going to just leave it like that. They addressed it. So 21% of female victims and 13% are stalked as minors. And that's something to think about if you have kids or you have young people that you're responsible for, that this is something that they may be experiencing. And this is the kind of information that you want to share with them so that they can understand that this is not just someone being interested in you. This is incredibly unhealthy. Hey, Apostle Hunt, this is incredibly unhealthy, and it is scary. It is scary, okay? Now, nearly 54% of female victims and 41% of male victims experience stalking before the age of 25. Now, we know that you're into your 20s, right, before your brain is even fully developed. And so what this tells me is you're experiencing this trauma before you're even 25 years old, okay? Someone who's engaging in stalking behavior is not respecting any boundaries. Okay, if this is an ex-person, then the things that you want to be able to say to law enforcement is, I've made it clear. You can document, screenshot it, or whatever. I made it clear that I do not want any contact from this person. I've made it clear. They're not welcome in my home. They're not welcome at my place of employment. They're not welcome at my school. I want nothing to do with them. Okay? And then you don't want to interact with them. Don't take the bait and respond to them. Don't do that, because that looks like a conversation now. That looks like a cat and mouse game. It doesn't look like you don't want to be bothered. Okay? You don't want to engage even to say, leave me alone for the 100th time. Don't do that, because it looks like you're confused about if you want to engage or not. Okay? Now, there are lots of stalking resources out there. One is the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center. Okay? So you've got whole agencies devoted only to the stalking aspect of domestic violence, which lets you know how serious it is. All right? There is a stalking, harassment, and risk profile assessment, which is a tool that is designed to examine and assess the lethality of the stalking that you're experiencing. Okay, so there are tools out there. You can inbox me and I can let you know what they are. But there are tools out there that you can use if you have questions about your own situation. And is this stalking? Should I be concerned about this? But I want to caution you, especially those of us of the household of faith, who have it drilled into us that we are to fear no man. Okay, that we're not to fear anything. That the fear of God destroys every other fear and all that other stuff, which is true and that's good. However, you want to know that that's your core value. That's not your stalker's core value, because if that was their core value, they wouldn't be stalking you. Okay, they would respect the fact that the relationship is over. They would respect, they might not like it, but they would respect the fact that you have a right to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And as unhappy as they might be, they would not be intrusive, and they would not be following you, and they would not be keeping tabs on you and entering your place of residence and undermining your feeling of safety and security. Okay, so it's important that we not be naive about who we're actually dealing with. A person who is stalking you is saying, I could care less about the boundaries that you think you are establishing. I'm establishing some different ones, and they involve me being all up in the middle of your life if that's where I feel like being. Okay, and so understand that. Let's not be naive. Let's not be so heavenly minded, again, that we're no earthly good. Sometimes we can get so spiritual that it gives the enemy the upper hand. We get so spiritual, okay? And this is how you can tell if this is what you're doing. If you get so spiritual that you have to do nothing at all concerning your situation. There's nothing for you to do. Nothing that you can improve upon. Nothing that you can educate yourself about, okay? That's a trap. That's a trap. The Lord is all about accountability. He's all about accountability. And so anything that doesn't hold you accountable for who's in your life, who's around your life, who's connected to you, is not God. He's not going to have you duct taped and tied down and stuck in the middle of a crazy situation. All right? While you're reciting scriptures. It makes absolutely no sense. Okay? And so let's not fall for that. All right? So the Stalking, Harassment, and Risk Profile Assessment is a 47-item web-based assessment. It provides an assessment of the big picture of a stalking situation, okay? And it also provides a situational risk profile that consists of 12 factors associated with a wide variety of harms, including sexual attack, harm to others, physical violence, ongoing and escalating stalking and harassment, and life sabotage. So there are tools out there that you can use to assess your situation, to get a feel for how concerned should I be about this. Okay? What else do I want you to know today? Another resource is stalkingrisk.com, coercivecontrol.org. outrageous.org, okay? And these are all resources that you can use to learn more about stalking, okay? What can be done about it? The first thing that you have to do is acknowledge it as stalking. Acknowledge that this is what's occurring. Abandon your need to give everybody a halo and make excuses if the behavior is abnormal, if the behavior is intrusive. If you've made it clear that you don't want any contact with this person and they continue to reach out to you, you are being stalked. If the person who is behaving this way has once had an intimate relationship with you, whether that involves sex or not, okay, it can be an emotional attachment, whether it involves physical intimacy or not, if that relationship becomes fractured, or if you just decide this is just not who I want to be with, this is not what God is saying, if they cannot accept that, you need to keep your antenna up. Acknowledge that this is what's happening. Your boundaries are being completely breached and disrespected. Okay? And we've talked about ways that this can manifest, right? Repeated phone calls, repeated text messages. You know, sometimes victims get hundreds of text messages a day. What does that do? It instills fear, frustration, anxiety. It might stoke some anger in the victim. It will stoke frustration in the victim. It will prevent the victim from having a healthy communication with anyone else because they become preoccupied with this. And even if they get these text messages and they decide, I'm going to ignore it, you have to first see it. You have to first know that so-and-so has just texted you, and then you have to decide to do nothing about it. So now you've thought about it twice, even though you ended up deciding not to do anything about it. So it's taken up a whole lot of time. It's taken up a whole lot of time and space, and they are living rent-free in your head, which is exactly what they want to do, okay? Don't minimize or downplay the behavior or rationalize the severity of the threats. I can tell you from a spiritual perspective that oftentimes the enemy will tell you, and if Apostle Hunt is on here, he can comment on this. The enemy will tell you exactly what he plans to do. Exactly. I'm going to break you. I'm going to make you wish you never left me. I'm going to ruin your reputation. I'm going to go to your apostle or your bishop and tell them X, Y, and Z. I'm going to release these pictures of you with little to no clothing on, and I'm going to post them all over social media, okay? The enemy will tell you exactly what he's going to do. It's not a secret. Part of eliciting the fear response is giving you something to be fearful of, right? To give you just enough and let your imagination take off from there, okay? So it's all about power and control. What I want you to understand from this broadcast is this. Don't downplay it. Don't make excuses for it. Don't misappropriate scripture to justify doing nothing about it, okay? Typically, when we misappropriate scripture, the end result is we don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything because God's got us, okay? This is how we get in trouble, okay? This is how we get in trouble. And so, God, as I said before, God does not need for us to minimize the threat. He does not need for us to rationalize it away or sprinkle fairy dust over it. He's God anyway, okay? He doesn't need us to do that. He doesn't need our help with that. We need to be able to take to him the actual issue, the actual problem, the actual severity of the problem as we understand it at that time. So don't minimize it. Don't make excuses. Don't say, well, I'm being mean, right? Or they got dropped on their head at birth, or they had a rough childhood. All of that notwithstanding, stalking is against the law in all of our states and the District of Columbia. Okay? It's against the law. So at the very least, they're breaking the law. Okay? You just need to be able to establish that you've made it clear that you don't want any contact with them. That can be an email. It can be a text message. Don't respond to, well, why do you hate me? Okay? These are things that are said to you in order to elicit conversation. And if you fall for that, hey, Joseph, if you fall for that, what you've done is you've weakened your own position. Whenever you do go to law enforcement, what they're going to see is interaction back and forth, an argument. How is it stalking when you're talking back to them? How is it stalking? Okay, if you want to look at it from a spiritual standpoint, you're still putting seed in that situation. You're putting seed in the ground in that situation. And you can expect a harvest on it, okay? If you want something to die, you starve it. If you starve it, it'll die. If you starve it, I'm telling you, I live by it. It will die. If you don't want to see some more of it, stop feeding it. Stop feeding it. Stop showing up to every argument you're invited to. Stop interacting. Stop taking the bait. Stop being concerned about what your stalker thinks of you. Stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I had someone say to me once, well, you won't talk to me anymore, and so why do you hate me? And that's not Christ-like. And I had one response. This went on for years, but I had one response. And this is what I said. I don't hate anybody. Okay? I'd have to be thinking about it. And musing over it. And brooding over it. To hate it. I choose not to invest that energy. Okay? And I'm certainly not going to hell behind this. Okay, so, and that was the last thing I ever said. But I needed to establish, listen here. I'm not responding to this foolishness. I'm not. I am not. Okay? And I'm not telling you that they will stop right away. Okay? I'm not telling you that just ignoring them will be enough. You may need to get a restraining order. You may need to have a safety plan. And if you have a stalker, I'm going to tell you right now, you need a safety plan. You need a plan for 3 a.m. when nobody's around and everybody's asleep and they decide, I'm coming in the house. You need a plan. You need a plan for you're on your way to work and they're behind you on the freeway. You need a plan for you're on your way to school and they're trying to run you off the road. Or they're just a couple of car lengths behind you. They just want you to know that they're there. You need a plan, okay? And so I'm recommending that you log these things, that you document these things, that you make a police report when you need to make a police report. But the most important thing from this particular session that I want you to grasp is stop making excuses for it. Call it what it is. Call it what it is, okay? And we've talked about how it can manifest. Ask yourself this. What would make me feel safer? Hey, Deborah, what would make me feel safer? What would make me feel safer? What do I need to feel safer? Okay? And so you need to connect with a domestic violence advocate. There are other agencies out here. You can inbox me anytime. Misty's on here. She's an advocate. Lisa Alexander of Stand Up Survivor is an advocate. There are many of us who are out here to lend support and encouragement in order to help to keep you safe. We want you to live. Listen, I don't want you to be a hashtag. I'm tired of hashtag. I don't want you to be a hashtag, and I don't want you to be the reason that a law was changed, okay? Yes, the laws need to be changed, but it does not have to be named by you, for you, because you were killed because you didn't listen. Okay? All right? Stalking is against the law in all of our states. Hey, Apostle Stephanie, it's against the law. Oftentimes when it first starts, and this can be while you're in a relationship, it can be when you first exited a relationship, it may feel flattering, like they're being attentive, they're concerned about your safety, and things like that. Okay? And it can feel comforting at first. But over time, that thing changes. Over time, it changes. And you get this sense of, I'm in danger. And you get this sense of, this person could hurt me. Okay? And so I want to caution you not to make excuses. Do not misappropriate scripture. Do not tell yourself you're being too harsh or you're being judgmental. Don't do that. Don't do that. You place yourself in danger that way, okay? And then we want to know, hey, Ron, and then we want to know, well, why did God allow this to happen? And I would challenge you to think back to how many attempts were made to warn you about that individual. You don't have to type it here. This is something you need to know. How many attempts were made? How many times did you get that feeling in your gut that something wasn't quite right? Did someone come to you and tell you? Did their ex come to you and say, listen, you need to watch out for this, this, and this? And did you decide that it was just them crying over spilt milk? They just didn't understand. you have a different relationship with them. Okay? Oftentimes, people find themselves in relationships with folk, and it's not even a secret. These are people who have a history of abusing others. So what is it that we're telling ourselves that makes it different for us to enter into a relationship with that same person? What is it that we're telling ourselves? What scripture are we misappropriating? What scripture is it that we're misappropriating? Okay? Now, as I told you in the very, very beginning, nobody wants to talk about this, and we're going to talk about it anyway, because we want people to live. I don't want you to be a hashtag. I don't want a law named after you, because that means you're dead when that happens. They tend to not name laws after people that are still living, okay? Something horrible had to happen to you, and now there's a law with your name on it, okay? So I prefer you live and have a full, abundant life as the Lord intended, okay? It's not necessary for you to die early in order to make your mark, okay? Understand that you have value. Understand that God has not ordained anyone to mistreat, to denigrate, to stalk, to follow, okay? The Lord sent his son to die for us, right? He sent his son to die for us. He did not send anybody to kidnap us, to stalk us, to do all of that, to get us to come to him. That's not his character. It's not his character, okay? So, something that I've learned from my own life. If you want to know who you're actually dealing with, hey, LaTanya, if you want to know who you're actually dealing with, tell them no. And wait. Just tell them no. It doesn't have to be anything major. Just tell them no. I'd like to go to a movie. No. No, thank you. And wait. Can they accept that? Or are they pushy? Are they negative with it? Are they now calling you names and now you're not this and you're not that and the other? Okay? It doesn't take a whole lot. Just say no and wait. Okay? Whatever response you get, there's more of that in there. There's more of that. There's more where that came from. Okay? So, what have we been talking about? We've been talking about stalking. January is National Stalking Awareness Month. We've talked about Peggy Clinky, who was murdered in 2003 by her ex, who I refuse to name, okay, although I know the name. And her sister was really heavily involved in getting this law passed. And under President Obama's administration, the first presidential proclamation regarding National Stalking Awareness Month was issued in 2011. So although the month was designated in 2004, it took until 2011 for a president to acknowledge it, the seriousness of the issue, the seriousness of the problem. Hey, Gigi. So understand that stalking is serious. It is serious, okay? And I've shared the statistic a few broadcasts back. There's a very high percentage of victims who are murdered. And I think it's 65 to 70% of them have been stalked in the year prior to their being murdered. So stalking is a very high indicator that somebody's going to die, okay? I'm not trying to scare you. We don't do scare tactics, okay? We don't do that. I'm just trying to let you know what the facts are, okay? If you are being stalked, the likelihood of you being murdered increases drastically. So you've got to be sensitive to what's going on. You want to be aware of your surroundings. You want to understand that if you're getting text messages and emails and surprise visits and chocolate candy and jewelry and invitations to dinner when you have said no, okay? If they are showing up places where they shouldn't be, if they're making direct contact with you or not, every time you turn around, there they are, okay? The first thing you need to do is check your inner circle. Who is connected to this person? Who thinks that you're exaggerating? Who thinks that you must be misunderstanding? Who's thinking that, okay? Because that's a flying monkey. That's what that is. No matter who they are, that's a flying monkey. And you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you are connected to someone who is sympathetic or intimidated by the person who is stalking you, you're not safe with them. You're not safe with them because they're sharing information. They're sharing information, okay? So if they're showing up on your job, they're making phone calls. What else can they do? They can show up on your job and be rude and obnoxious to the people in the lobby. They can cause a scene on your job. You may be a an employee par excellence. But if you have someone showing up, making other people uncomfortable, now your employment is in jeopardy. So this is another tactic that abusers use to cause financial instability in the life of the victim. Okay? Your boss may love you, okay? But they can't have this person showing up all the time, making it dangerous for everyone on the job. Okay? So again, it's important, and I am beseeching those of you who are spiritual people, who say you have a relationship with the Lord, do not shirk your own responsibility for maintaining your own safety, okay? This means you have to communicate this with someone. You've got to let people know that this is happening, number one. People have to know that it's happening. They need to know who's doing it. Anyone gives you any pushback or feedback, or, oh, you must be misunderstanding. Oh, no, we just going to pray about it. That is not your help, okay? You can stop talking to them. They're not helping you. They're not helping you. They're on assignment. They're a distraction. They're not going to help you. I don't care who it is. Don't care. It can be your therapist, okay? Doesn't matter. Your pastor. It doesn't matter. If they act like you're exaggerating, if they act like there's something you should do differently, well, maybe we should just sit down all together and talk. Bad idea. Horrible idea. That idea is from the pit of hell, okay? God did not give them that idea. That's a horrible idea, all right? Okay? So understand that you want to document, you want to make it clear, you want to capture the fact that you made it clear, that you don't want anything to do with them. That does not take an hour. It does not take 30 minutes. I do not want to hear from you in any form, period. As one sentence, less than 10 seconds, that's it. Okay? Don't get baited into a conversation. Don't get baited into an argument. Don't get baited into defending yourself and explaining yourself, okay? No is a complete sentence. It really, truly is. It really, truly is, okay? All right. So I thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to ask you to share. We're going to be touching on stalking throughout this month because it is such a tremendous problem. Anytime you have entire organizations devoted to the stalking aspect of domestic violence alone, okay, that lets you know how serious of a problem it is. And again, the majority of women who are murdered were stalked in the year prior to being murdered by the person who murdered them. That's how important it is. Thank you for the hearts. That's how important it is. That's how dangerous it is, okay? You should not be seeing this person everywhere you go. You should not. You should not be getting gifts from a person that's an ex. That's not normal. That is not normal, okay? So, hey, Verona. So, let's educate ourselves. Let's raise awareness. And let's share what we know so that we can help people to stay alive. If you're in a stalking situation, you need to notify law enforcement. You need to keep a log. You need to reach out to a domestic violence advocate in your area. If you need help with that, you can inbox me and I'll help you connect with someone. All right? There are people right here on Facebook who are advocates. Misty was on here. I don't know if she's still on here or not, but she's an advocate. Lisa Alexander from Stand Up Survivor, she's an advocate. Okay? There are people here that I can put you into contact with, and I'm willing to help you myself. We have a blog called Judah's Roar, and I will type that in. Deborah, if you're still on here, would you type that in there? www.judahsroar, which JUDAHSROAR-R.com is our blog. If you subscribe to the blog, you'll automatically be emailed a template for a safety plan. Okay? It's free of charge. There's no charge for it. It's a safety plan. And you need it. You need it even if you're not experiencing this yourself. Someone that you know will need it. Someone that you know right now either has experienced this and wish they had had a template for a safety plan, or they're going through it right now. Okay? You may be going through it right now. So you can get that safety plan template by simply subscribing to our blog. We have a closed Facebook group. It's faith-based. So if you don't want to talk about God and faith and spirituality, it's not the group for you. Just letting you know. Love you though. But it's called Dominion Over Domestic Violence. Okay? And that's a closed Facebook group that we have. And so we come on here every week. We have a mandate from the Lord to cry aloud and spare not regarding domestic violence. There are too many people dying, being snatched right out of the house of God, okay, prematurely. And it is avoidable. It is avoidable. It absolutely is. We're going to continue to pray for you. We solicit your prayers. If you want to sow and you want to give, then we put it at the top of the broadcast. Our Cash App is Judah's Roar, JUDAHSROARRR. And our PayPal is paypal.me/JudahsRoar, JUDAHSROARRR. All right? It's absolutely good soil. We are excited about the things that the Lord is doing. We're going to have some announcements for you here, probably in the next month or so. Okay, but we are really excited about what the Lord is doing. We are believing Him to provide so that we can run with the vision that He has given us. All right. Again, this is Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. Hey, V. A pastor told you that. Oh, okay. What did the pastor tell you, Deborah? What did the pastor say? Man, I tell you what, don't y'all get me started on this horrible advice that ministry leaders give, okay? And I am a ministry leader. Don't get me started on that. That's a whole nother Facebook Live. And then I'm going to need some intercessors praying in the background because I just cannot with this horrible advice and misappropriated scripture, and people are dying in our churches unnecessarily. All right? All right. This is Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. We love you. We're praying for you, and we will be back next week. Remember, January is National Stalking Awareness Month. Remember that the reason that there is a month designated is because Peggy Clinky was murdered by her ex-person, who I refuse to say their name, after being stalked. And let me just say this. Someone said to me a couple of weeks ago, someone reached out to me and they described their situation, and they stated that their ex had threatened to commit suicide one time in their presence during a child exchange for visitation or whatever, held a gun to their own head or whatever, okay? All of that is stalking behavior. Do not get lulled into a sense of security because they are 2 or 3 states away from you, or so you think. Do not get lulled into a sense of security because they are hours away from you and you only see them, every blue moon. Do not get lulled into a sense of security. That's what they're counting on. Okay? And you have to remember that this is about power and control. And the best way to control you and to have power over you is the element of surprise. I'm not coming when you think I'm coming. I'm coming when you think I can't come. I'm coming in the middle of the night because you have to sleep sometime. I'm coming because I'm 5-6 hours away from you and you think I won't come. All right? So let's not fool ourselves about what people are capable of, okay? Devoid of God and His Spirit, what mankind is capable of doing to one another is horrendous. Okay, so Deborah, you said you should be more supportive of your husband's military career instead of reporting him. Okay, I am a former military commander. Okay, and so I sympathize with military spouses because you are pretty much on your own. You're pretty much on your own. Okay, in my squadron, and I had the largest squadron on base. And there were only 7 women, and I was one of them. And there were 500 people in my unit, but I didn't play that. Okay, I did not play that. I did not. But many women with their experiences, they don't get any support. They don't get any support from the military commanders. And I know that that's right because they were my peers. Okay. And I'm sorry that they told you that, but that was I didn't play that. I didn't. No. Taking all your rank, all of it. Taking all of your rank. Let me substantiate that people aren't safe with you. Because the only conclusion I could come to as a commander is we aren't safe with you either. Because you don't respect any boundaries. And no, you can't carry a weapon. Okay, so I know that that happens. I know that that happens. Okay, no, you're okay, Deborah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this is Apostle Cheryl. We'll be back on next week, but I want you to think about the incessant phone calls, the text messages, the, calling you in the middle of the night, following you to work, sitting in the parking lot, showing up unannounced, dropping off flowers, and, all of this kind of stuff after a fight. It's like, let's be honest with ourselves about what's actually happening. Okay? And then let's be courageous enough to take the actual problem to the Lord and not the problem that we varnish over. Okay? Let's not do that. Let's not do that. All right? Apostle Cheryl here. I love you, and we will be back on next week. So keep your eyes posted on our social media platforms. We're on Instagram. We're on Pinterest. We're on Twitter. We're going to be posting some things regarding stalking. Hey, Barbara. We're going to be posting some things regarding stalking because it is important. And again, remember that the majority of women, especially who are murdered, have been stalked in the year prior to their murder. So stalking is a very serious indicator of a potential homicide occurring down the road, okay? A potential homicide. I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you to be knowledgeable, all right? Apostle Cheryl here. I love you very, very much. Watch the replay. Have a watch party. Share on all your social media platforms. Stay safe. Stay safe. Stay safe. If you need me, inbox me, all right? I love you, and I'll be back next week. Blessings to you.